If you thought that ChatGPT and GPT are the only game in town, you're going to be in for a surprise. Because in today's video, I'm going to be showing you an amazing LLM, which is a large language model from Google. Now, before we get started, as always, all the resources, all the apps, etc., I'm going to be demonstrating in today's video are going to be available from our amazing Patreon community, and you can learn more about it using the link in the description below. Besides GPT and ChatGPT, there are tons and tons of other large language models. In fact, here I have an app called LM Studio that enables me to test out and kind of play around with different large language models. And one of the LLMs that we're going to be discussing in today's video is actually from Google. And in order to find it, and so the first thing that you need to do is you need to Google for Vertex AI. Once you get on this page, you're going to see that you can build, deploy, and scale machine learning models faster with fully managed ML tools for any use case. And so here you can learn more about things like the Model Garden, as well as the Generative AI Studio that we're going to be covering today. So the next thing that you want to do is you want to click on Go to Console, and you're going to be redirected to your project's console. Now, if you already have Firebase or Google Projects, then you're good to go. If not, you're going to be prompted to create a new project. So here I am in Vertex AI's dashboard, and I got my project here selected that I use for all kinds of different things that I built. And on the left-hand side, you have different options. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to give you a general overview of what we're looking at and the kind of things that you can do with it. And then a little bit later in the video, we're going to try out one of Google's generative AI models. And after that, we're going to connect this model to a NoCode of our choice, FlutterFlow. So I have here dashboard selected, and this enables me to see everything that's kind of going on related to Vertex AI. And here we have a kind of a get started guide. We have some tutorials, we got notebooks, we got a model garden, which we're going to get to in a second. And we also have a really interesting tool called the Generative AI Studio. And I also have some recent data sets as well as some custom models that I've been playing around with. And you can also train your own model and get predictions on this model. Now, the next thing you want to do is you want to click on Model Garden here. And this is where you can see all the models that are available, all the standard models that you can interact with, right? So we have these foundation models, okay? So this is Palm 2 for text, Palm 2 for chat, and embeddings for text. So you can think of this as GPT and this as ChatGPT. They're very similar. And then we have fine-tunable models. Okay, so these are image classification models. We have a vision transformer, right? And then we have here an image object detection model, okay? And then you have all kinds of interesting models that can detect people and vehicles in a video or image, zone detection, dwell time, and more. So you have models dealing with text, you have models dealing with audio, you have models dealing with images, and then you have models dealing with videos. So you have all kinds of models for pretty much any kind of application. And not only that, you can take one of these base models and then tune them to your specific use cases and applications. Now, one of my favorite features when it comes to Vertex AI is the Generative AI Studio. Okay, so if you click here, you're going to see this screen here. You're going to see the Generative AI Studio lets you quickly test and customize generative AI models so you can leverage their capabilities in your applications. So right now I have access to language models and speech models. So with language models, I can test, tune, and deploy generative AI language models, right? Access to Palm API for chat, code generation, content generation, chat summarization, and more. And lots of different things when it comes to speech. So if you click on languages, this is where you can experiment with different prompts. And so remember what a prompt is. A prompt is essentially instruction that you give to an LLM that essentially tells it what you're looking for and what kind of format do you want the data to get back. The more specific the prompt, the more precise the answer that you're going to be getting. So here you can design and test your own prompts. You can start a conversation, and then you can tune a model as well. So there's some prompt examples. If you scroll down, these are all chat examples. These are free form. We have structured as well, and then we have a bunch of other examples. So if we click on this first example here, right? So let's say we click on this example right here, we open it up. You're going to be on a screen that looks something like this. And here's where the context is. And then we have examples. So I really like this part with examples, because here you can actually tell the model what kind of answers do you want, it to give you back, depending on the kind of questions you're going to be getting. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to give it a context, right? Your name is Miles. You're an astronomer who is knowledgeable about the solar system. Respond in short sentences. Shape your response as if talking to a 10-year-old. So this right here is an example of a system prompt if you're familiar with ChatGPT development. And here you can give this model different examples as to how you want the response to be formatted, right? So in addition to kind of giving it instructions as part of your context, you can also give it concrete examples with answers as to how you want the model to behave. So for instance, in this example, the user is asking a question: how many moons does Mars have? And the AI example answer is something like this. Very good question. Mars has 2 moons, Phobos and Deimos. Okay, and it continues with this kind of sample answer, this example answer. And then you can continue conversation. You can ask it something else. Okay, how hot does the sun get? Okay, so something related to that. We're going to send it. We're going to wait for the answer. And there's the answer. The surface of the sun is about 9,941 degrees Fahrenheit, or 5,500 plus degrees Celsius, etc., etc. Now, if I don't like the way it's giving me the answer, maybe I don't like the style or the format, I can give it more examples, and I can kind of train it to give me answers in the format that I prefer. And then on the right-hand side, you have some options with the model. So you can pick this model, but you can also work with a code generation model. So you can select that. And now you can give it, various things having to do with code, like generate this code, generate that code, which we're going to get to in a second as well. So I'm going to switch back. And here you have your various parameters: temperature, token limit, top K, top P. You can learn more about these on your own, but suffice to say, temperature is a metric that specifies how creative you want the model to be, whereas a token limit is self-explanatory, right? Token limit determines the maximum amount of text output from one prompt. A token is approximately 4 characters. The default value is 256. Okay, so you can adjust this, and that's going to adjust, how large of an answers you're going to be getting. Do you want like very concise answers, or do you want longer answers as well? So this is just one example of a kindergarten science teacher. So we can go back here, and we can probably play with another prompt. So here we have summarize a news article. We can open that, and you can provide a prompt, provide a brief summary of the following article, and you have, your article here. And once you click on submit, you're going to get a response right here. So if I click on submit, I should get a very, very similar response as we've just seen, right? So here's a very quick summary. It's a brief summary. Now I can click on structured, and here's where I can give it examples, right? I can give it an example input, an example output. And so maybe I don't like the style, I don't like the way that it's formulating the responses. Maybe I'm not crazy about the way it's doing it, the way it's writing it. So I can give it some examples, and then here I can test this model again. I can give it an input now, and hopefully it's going to follow the examples that I've given it, and it's going to come up with something that's more along the lines of what I like, that kind of thing. Okay, and you have your options here as well. And in fact, you also have 2 models to play around with, right? There's the latest one, and then there's this a model version here. So you can kind of play around with both of these. Now, as you're playing around with these different models and entering examples and trying to get that perfect prompt, you're working with prompt design. In other words, you can actually save a prompt that you've been working on and come back to it later. So if you click on my prompts, you're going to see that I have one prompt that I've been kind of playing around with, that I saved it so that I can come back to it later. If we open up this prompt, and so for the context, I wrote that you're an encyclopedia of knowledge and your job is to provide answers to my questions. And here I gave it various examples. So I gave it 4 example questions with corresponding example answers, okay? And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to come up with a very, very brief answer. And I also wanted to append the word sir to the answer. So I said, what's the capital of Spain? Madrid. Comma, sir. What's the capital of Italy? Rome. And then I gave it a bunch of other examples, right? How many people live in France? I looked this up and I just gave it a very, very brief answer. And so now if we test the model, we can do something like this. How many people live in USA? Okay, so if we try that, let's see what it gives us back. So it gives us back a very, very brief answer, 331.9 million. But if I remove this and I try this again, I should probably get a different response. And as you can see, I'm getting a different response. The United States has a population of about 330 million people, sir. So I don't want, a very, I don't want like a sentence. I just want like a word. I want a very, very brief answer. And so I can add this right back. How many people live in France? And so let's say it's, 65 million. So I can say 65 million, sir, and then I can try this again, and I should get something similar to my example. So I really, really like this feature because it enables me to kind of mini train. I mean, I'm not like, training this model like I'm going to show you in a second, but I can kind of mini train. I can work with it. I can also ask it a capital, right? What is the capital of Brazil? Right? Something like this. And I should get a very, very brief answer, right? So if we do that, we get something like this. And this is really, really nice because I have this whole UI. I can play with different models. I can do all kinds of interesting things. But in addition to all of this, I didn't even tell you the best part. Wait until you hear the best part that I'm going to cover in just a moment. So we can click save. And now we've saved everything. We have our prompts. We can go back. And in addition to chat, summarization, we also have things like classification. We have entity extraction, right? So this allows us to extract pieces of data that we deem important. So for instance, this contract analysis, you are a partner of a law firm. Your associates are bored of reading contracts to find specific provisions when they can work on more intellectually challenging tasks. So if we open this up, you're going to see that this is the prompt right here, and this is free form, right? So if I click on structured, I can give it examples, right? I can give it some tweaks. I can nudge it in the right direction, right? But if I click on free form, it's just free form, right? So I can say answer the questions based on the context below, extract the exact full sentence that contains the answer. If the question cannot be answered using the information provided, answer with I cannot find the governing law. And now if you scroll down, there's a question and an answer. What is the governing law in this contract, right? And if you click submit, it tells us this agreement is governed by English law. Now we can click on structured and we can give it various examples and answers as to how we want the model behave, just like with the previous example. So if we go right back, and here we have more ideas. So we talked about extraction. We also have writing, and we have ideation, right? So coming up with ideas. So in the writing section, I really, really like this example, right? This ad copy generation. You are a marketer and want to create different versions of the same ad to target different audiences. You would like some suggestions. So if you open this up right here, you can see an interesting prompt that you can actually use with ChatGPT if you want. For each of the following categories, create 3 one-sentence ad copies using the product description provided, right? So there's all of these categories, and then there's a product description. So these categories allow you to create ads that target specific things. So we have things like scarcity, loss aversion, appeal to ego, exclusivity, etc., etc. And that's how marketers create ads. They target different things. And here's a product description. Chromecast is a device that allows users to wirelessly cast their content from other devices so they can watch their favorite movies, etc., etc. So if you click submit here, you're going to get an interesting ad copy. Check this out. And so here are some ideas for each of the categories, 3 ideas for each of the categories, including scarcity, loss aversion, appeal to ego, exclusivity, gain seeking, luxury, etc., etc. So one example is Chromecast is the only device that allows you to wirelessly cast your content from your phone, tablet, or laptop to your TV. Chromecast is so popular that it's often sold out. Get yours before it's too late. And this is an example of scarcity. And you can kind of go down the list and check out some of the other ideas in each of these categories. So actually pretty cool. And once again, you can click on structured and give it some examples, example answers, example questions as to how you want the model to come up with answers. So let's go back here. And you can kind of scroll down. You can play around with some of these other prompts. Really, really cool. Kind of get an idea of how things work. Now, another really powerful thing that you can do is you can actually tune an existing model. So if you click here, you can see that I'm in the process of tuning a model. And what exactly is tuning? Well, it's when you take an existing model and give it data that kind of tells it how you want the model to behave. And the way you tune it is that you click here and you need to upload the file in this JSON-L format. And this is essentially lines of JSON. And this is an example file that I used to start this model tuning, right? So I have a bunch of lines. I have like 50 lines or 100 lines, and every single line looks exactly like this. So if I separate it, you can see that this is a JSON, and JSON-L is essentially lines of JSON. So this is essentially a bunch of JSON formatted strings, right? So, and the way you want to format it is you're going to be giving it input text, and you're going to give it output text. So I said, well, what is the capital of France? Output text, the capital of France is Paris, sir. So I gave it a bunch of questions and I gave it the correct answers, and I appended sir at the end because that's how I want my model to behave. And this is just one example of how you can tune these models. You can tune for classification. You can tune for pretty much anything. And once you have this file, all you need to do is upload it, click continue, add some model details, and then wait until your model finishes tuning. And maybe at the end of the video, this model will finish tuning, and I'm going to show you the results as well. Now, a lot of the things that I talked about so far is amazing, and I'm super excited of the ability to actually play around with an LLM and try to kind of get the perfect prompt so that the model gives me what I'm looking for. But all of this is not very helpful to us if we cannot integrate this functionality into our own apps, whether it's a FlutterFlow app or pretty much anything else. And that is why one of my favorite features when it comes to this generative AI studio is the fact that it has an API. So if you click on any model, so if I go into my prompts and I click on my prompt, and so any prompt, any model that you're working with, all you need to do is click on view code here, and you're going to be given various ways that you can connect with this model. So right now we are looking at Python integration here, but we're not doing Python, we are doing NoCode. And that is why you need to always be looking for curl. And so if you click on curl, you are given instructions how you can connect to this model and how you can communicate with it from your own apps. So first, let me show you how you can connect to this model using an API. And then a little bit later in the video, I'm going to show you how you can build a no-code app in FlutterFlow that enables you to connect to pretty much any of the models that we talked about so far. Now, the first thing that you need to do is you need to execute this command, and you need to execute it in a Cloud Shell. And that's very easy. All you need to do is click on this, activate Cloud Shell. That's going to activate this screen here. It's connecting right now. Okay, our shell is provisioned. And if I go back to the instructions, I copy this line right here and I paste it. I'm going to log in into my project. So I'm going to say yes. And now I get back a URL. I'm going to click on this URL here. And when I open this URL, I'm going to see a login screen. So I need to log in into my account. I need to click on allow. And once I do that, I'm going to be given a verification code. I need to copy this code right here, and I need to paste it here. Once I paste it, I am now logged into my account. So I can close this window here because I don't really need it. And now that I'm logged into my account, I can get my access token. I can just copy this right here, paste it in here, and it displays my access token. And I need this access token to access the model that we're looking at right now, because this access token tells the model that I'm giving it permission to access using my project. Now, the next thing I want to do is I want to click copy. I want to paste it here, and I need to make a couple of changes. The first change I need to make is I need to replace this part with this token that I was given. So I'm going to copy this token, and I'm going to paste it in here. Next, I need to make sure that I replace all the variables with their values here. So for instance, this project ID, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to replace it here. This API endpoint, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to replace it here. And this model ID, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to replace it right here. Once I do that, I can delete all of this, and I can load up my trusty Rapid API app that I use for pretty much all my API HTTP request testing. We're going to create a brand new request right here, and then I'm going to go into File, Import, Text. I'm going to copy all of this and I'm going to paste it in here. I'm going to say import, and it imports the request. And I can click on headers. I can look at my request. I also have the body right here. And so now that I've imported the request, I can execute it to make sure that everything works. So I'm going to run this request and we get a response back. So if I open this up, we can see that this is our response. So this is what the response looks like. And we're getting the content back, the answer, because the question that we were sending was, what is the capital of Brazil, along with all of these other parameters. So if I change this, what is the capital of Colombia, and I send it again, I should get something similar, right? And this is the capital of Colombia, right? And so now we know that our API works. We're getting the answers that we need. We can actually integrate this request into our app. And so let's jump into our no-code tool of choice, which is FlutterFlow. So here we are inside the FlutterFlow. I built a very, very simple app that allows you to, enter some kind of input, enter some text, send a request, and get a response right here. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to configure this API call. I'm going to click here, and we have an API call that we need to configure. I'm just going to call it API. The URL, we're going to copy the URL from the app here. This is a post request because it has the body. We're going to put the URL here. It is post. Next, you want to paste the body. We're just going to paste it as text. Going to come here, going to copy this text right here, paste it in here. Next, you're going to go into variables, and you want to create one variable for the input. So I'm just going to make it a string, and I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go back to body, and now we have this question that we can drag anywhere in the body for something that we need to make sure it's a variable, right? It's not static. And so if we scroll down, we have this input here. Okay, so we're going to delete it, and we're going to drag and drop question right here. And we can delete the quotes as well, because as you can see in the previous examples, the quotes are not enclosing the actual question. And then you can click on save. Next, we need to go into headers, and we need to enter the headers that we have here. So as you can see, I have two headers here. So we're going to enter this authorization header here, authorization. Then we're going to copy this, paste it in here, and I'm going to add another header, content type, application JSON. Okay, we're going to click save. And now you can go into response and test and see if it works. So we have this question. We're going to type, what is the capital of Chile? And we're going to do a test API call. It's executing, and we get back a response. So this is a JSON response. And now we need to extract just this content field here. So we're going to go into recommended. And here you want to find the string that you're interested in. In this case, this is what we want. We're going to click on select it, go back, give it a name, answer, and click save. And now our API is configured. It's good to go. And that means that our app should work. And in case you're not familiar, this is a similar app that I made in one of the previous videos. Essentially, what we have is an input. And when you send a request, it sends this input to that API, gets back the data, sets it as a page state variable, and this actually reads it from that state variable. So we're going to click here. We're going to open this up. We have this question here. This is taking the value from the input, gets the response, and once it gets the response, it needs to make sure that it's actually updating the right value. So if we come here, we need to make sure that we're extracting answer, because that's what we said before when we were configuring the API, because that's the only thing that we're interested in, okay? So everything looks good. Let's go and test our app. All right, so here's our app, and we can enter an input. So what is the capital of Portugal? Okay, for instance, send this API, wait for the response, and here's the response, Lisbon. And actually, I got the response fairly fast. In fact, it feels like it's faster than ChatGPT. Let's try again. What is the capital of Lithuania? Very, very fast, right? And it's correct. And it's giving us the responses in ways that I want. And actually, one of the main hassles that I have had with ChatGPT, and I still have this problem, is making sure that it responds in a way that I want, right? I'm getting better at it, but still, sometimes it does what I want. Other times, it just gives me a random response. It's still correct, but it's not really what I wanted. But here, it's exactly on the money, right? So we can try something. What is the population of Peru? Okay, let's see if that works. Okay, you see, we trained it. We gave it examples. We gave it some, example questions with example answers, and we told it, like, just be very, very brief. Okay, and that's exactly what it's doing, right? What is the capital of Brazil? Let's see that. And in fact, the responses are coming in very, very fast. It feels like it's a lot faster than ChatGPT, which is understandable because we're using our own model with our own project, etc., etc. Whereas with ChatGPT, you're competing with all of these other people that are using this model. So it makes sense. And so as you can see, it's working really, really well. It's giving us the answers that are correct. It's giving them in the format that we specified, and it's fairly fast. It feels faster than ChatGPT for sure. And this is just, the scraping the top of the barrel, right? There's so many things that you can do with it. And so if you head back to this dashboard here, you can play around with different prompts, you can play around with different models, and you can actually tune new models as well. There's also speech. So if you click on speech, you have text to speech, speech to text, you have English, you have Spanish. These are voices, but when it comes to transcription, you have tons and tons of different languages. You have a feature store, you have data sets, you have labeling, training, experiments, metadata, model registry, all kinds of interesting features that I hope to cover in a future video. And so if you're looking to build generative AI apps, definitely check out Vertex AI and definitely check out our amazing Patreon community, because members of our amazing Patreon community have exclusive access to all the apps that I built on this channel, which allows them to view and or clone pretty much any app that I build. Are all there. And that means being a member of our incredible Patreon community, you can easily clone the app that I built here in this video and start experimenting building generative AI apps that integrate with Google's own LLM using this Vertex AI. Plus, as a member of our amazing Patreon community, you're going to get access to more content such as Q&As, live streams, behind the scenes content, and our incredible Patreon supported masterclass series where I do a deep dive on specific topics that the community votes on. And above all, when you join our Patreon community, you're going to be supporting this channel and supporting my work, and that is greatly, greatly appreciated. Now, if you guys are interested in more videos when it comes to generative AI, check out the video that you're seeing in the corner of your screen right now.